Racism has never affected me because I didn't let it.
In this episode, we took a trip up to Niigata, which is located along the coast of the Sea of Japan. Our destination, Myoko Kogen, where we caught up with Donald Gray. Donald, who has been living in Japan for over 8 years, is the owner of Myoko Powder Farm, an adventure chalet that he rents out to groups of people for the adventure of a lifetime. This is Donald's story.
Donald!
Hey,
What's up? I'm good.
Well, welcome everybody to the Myoko Powder Farm.
All right, please show us around.
All right. Welcome to the Myoko Powder Farm out here in Myoko Kogen in Niigata, Japan. This is your headquarters for everything outdoor sports, outdoor adventure related in the Japanese countryside. So this is a adventure chalet that we rent out to groups of between 4 and 10 people. We rent out the whole place, you have it to yourself. I stay in just a little room in the back just in case you need anything. But definitely want to have everybody come in, have a good family vibe. So we got the dining space, the living space, definitely used freely. Gotta have the massage chair after a long day on the slopes or out on the lake. If you're feeling a little musical, got my Pride and Joy drum set over there. Guitar action, entertainment center. Myoko Kogen has some amazing food, but you're not always going to want to go to the izakaya, so definitely welcome to use the kitchen. Have a nightcap at the bar, and I'm from the West Coast, so we like a little house party action. That is A-OK over here. We're all family when you come to the Powder Farm. All right, let's take a look at the guest rooms. So this is a old traditional Japanese farmhouse that we've renovated to turn it into this adventure center. So watch the steep steps there. And here we have our dorm room, sleeps up to 4 people. Had to spend a little extra just to get the super soft mattresses, so no matter what you're doing, if you're out here skiing, snowboarding, wakeboarding, mountain biking, you're gonna come home, you're gonna get a great night's sleep. So we got 4 people in here. Super comfy beds. We have the double in here. So this room we actually renovated with the locally grown Japanese cedar. So this is all wood that comes specifically from this region. The nice wood walls for the good atmosphere. And here's the big 2 room. So again, renovated with the Japanese cedar from Myoko Kogen. If we want to come over here and take a look, just outside of this window is one of my favorite places in the world. That right there is the back of Madarao-san, Mount Madarao. And the resort that's facing us is called Tangram. Now, if you're an intermediate or above skier or snowboarder, that is some of the best skiing in the world right there, folks. So if you come out during the wintertime, I'd love to take you out and show you some sweet powder turns in the Japanese countryside. And then finishing out of our traditional Japanese tatami room here, so you can get a real feel for the local culture. Awesome views out each window, looking at Madarao and Myoko-san, just enjoying the greenery in a lovely neighborhood. Thanks so much for checking out Myoko Powder Farm. You can book this lodge by going to www.myokopowderfarm.com. Connect with me on Instagram at RealDonaldGray, or find this lodge on Instagram at Myoko Powder Farm. Thanks for checking it out. We'd love to get into nature and have an awesome time with you guys. We'll see you soon.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Melanated Files. My name is Ranzo, and today we're joined by Donald Gray. We are in Myoko Kogen, right? That's located in the prefecture of Niigata. We're gonna get into Donald's story today, so stay tuned for that. So Donald, can you introduce yourself to the world? Tell them why you came to Japan and what you do.
My name is Donald Gray, and I've been living in Japan for 8 years now. I first came to Japan because I've had an interest in Japan since I was a young boy. My father did a lot of business in Japan, came out here about 10 times a year, almost every month, and I was exposed to Japanese culture from a very young age. That early interest in Japan really came to the fruition when one of my buddies moved out here, and he actually happened to live through the 3/11 earthquake and tsunami in a town called Ishinomaki. Thereafter, I came out, visited, did a little bit of volunteer work, and had just a beautiful, beautiful experience in surrounded by what was obviously a complete tragedy. But I got to see the Japanese spirit, the Japanese heart, had a little crisis of what I was doing as working in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles. And a year later, I ended up moving out here. Right now, I'm the lodge owner of Myoko Powder Farm, which is an adventure accommodation here in Myoko Kogen in beautiful Niigata, Japan. We have some of the best skiing in the world. We do all sorts of outdoor activities from mountain biking, wakeboarding. We got into a little bit of skateboarding yesterday. And just living it up out here in the Inaka, in the countryside.
So, you came to Japan 8 years ago, right?
Yes.
And you said you were residing in Tokyo at first.
Yes.
All right. So why the Inaka? Tell me about the transition from Tokyo to the Inaka.
That's a good question. Well, I originally came from Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is a great international city. You really feel like you have the world at your fingertips when you're living in LA. And coming out to Tokyo, the first time, just that feeling of getting off the train for the first time, opening up your eyes, you're kind of being awakened into this whole new world. And you realize, wow, this place, this is going to run deep. And I came out here to visit at first, and it wasn't enough. I found myself, I got back to LA, I got back into the grind. I was working in music at the time.
Okay.
And I couldn't stop thinking about Japan. So I made the decision. I was like, I'm going to learn the language, started taking Japanese classes, and I'm going to go out there and come out for a year, see how it goes. I figured if my buddy could figure out a life out here, that I could as well.
Okay.
So, luckily he kind of was my forebearer, my buddy Steve. What's up, boy? But he was my forebearer. He came out here, kind of proved that it could be done, and I came out and just had a great experience. When I first came out, I transitioned from music and music production, music publishing into video production.
Okay.
So started working for a creative agency in Tokyo. And for some reason, I thought that I would just be able to just slide in as this hotshot from Los Angeles, and everybody be so happy to have me, and it'd be super easy just to get along. And that was not the case.
Okay.
The reason why I ended up ultimately moving out here is just the Japanese work culture, and I butted heads. It just wasn't me, right? I'm somebody who doesn't like, as we would say, like a komakai yatsu wa amari suki janai. So I don't like that real tedious bureaucracy type stuff. I'm more of a big thinker, big dreamer, creative type. And the best way for me to find that was to get out of the city and do my own thing.
So we're in this lodge, right? So
Yes.
you're coming from Tokyo,
Yes.
right? So you moved out to Niigata.
Yes.
Right. I came here yesterday. It's a beautiful place you have here as well.
Yeah.
Tell me how you came about securing this place and deciding that you wanted to have a lodging.
Yeah, so really at the core of all this is I'm a lifelong skier. I've been skiing since I was 2 years old. My dad was obsessed with skiing.
Okay.
And I really have to give credit to an organization in the United States called the National Brotherhood of Skiers.
Okay.
The National Brotherhood of Skiers at one point in the 90s was the largest ski club in the world. And what it was a national conglomeration of black ski clubs all over the United States.
Okay.
Now, it's still going on. They have summits and mini summits that happen every year and every other year. And it's a way for people from the inner city, from all over, just having black people experience the mountains. Especially in the United States, when you go skiing, it's a predominantly white sport. So it's really important for I think, everybody to appreciate the natural wonder, the natural beauty that we all should have access to. So the National Brotherhood of Skiers got me involved in ski racing, and really put me on course to appreciate nature in a way that a lot of black kids didn't have the opportunity necessarily to do so. So coming out here, my first weekend in Tokyo, when I was moving to Tokyo, I had heard from my dad, there's skiing in Japan, but he always said, it's not that great. They don't have real mountains. They're just little molehills. And my dad was the kind of guy where he wanted to find the biggest, baddest mountain and get down it as fast as possible. So skiing in the United States, we have really big, wide open, amazing resorts out there. In Japan, the resort's a little bit smaller, and my dad wasn't impressed with what he found when he came out here. Now, I came out here not really knowing what to expect, and I ended up getting involved with a company called Tokyo Snow Club, and I ended up actually going on a Tokyo Snow Club trip my third day after moving to Japan, moving out here.
Okay.
Pretty much after getting on the bus for this trip, I was like, okay, I've done bus tours before. I've been a ski instructor for 10 years at this point, or 7 years at this point. I essentially went up to the leader at the time, we'll get into that guy a little later, one of my dear friends, Sam, and I said, hey, I'm a ski instructor, I just moved to Japan, I'm joining your company. He was like, cool, man. I guess so. So I got to experience the snow culture out here in Japan with a group of like-minded outdoors enthusiasts, skiers, and snowboarders. Everybody likes to party a bit. It was a good time, and I always immediately put it in the back of my head. I was like, okay, I've lived in ski resorts, ski towns before. This is definitely my long-term plan. Okay. So, right? So how I, actually ended up getting into that was I spent 5 years in Tokyo, and I was working in various aspects of video production. I was a virtual reality producer for some amount of time, and like I said, just the Japanese work culture, it works for some people. If you really thrive in that really highly structured environment, then it's a great place to come out and kind of be able to, I don't know, if you're somebody that cannot navigate the office politics and deal with the bureaucracy, let's say, of working in a Japanese office, then that's a good option for you. It wasn't for me. I just constantly felt like I was being throttled, like I wasn't able to reach my full potential creatively. Okay. And Tokyo is such an amazing city to live in, especially this is the end of my 20s. So, it's a great town to go out and, party and experience everything that Tokyo has to offer, right? But as you start to slow down a bit, the body can't exactly do what the mind wants to do. So I was pretty, I wouldn't say unsatisfied, but I wasn't happy with the work environment that I was in. I saw a lot more potential for what my company could have been doing to serve our clients better. And eventually it just got to the point where I went to the clients directly. I said, I'm going independent. I'm the one that's been producing all of your content anyways. Come with me. And I left that company. I went independent and doing independent video production, audio production as well. There's a kind of a little bit of fate there. This was in 2017. I took my first big paycheck that I got from an independent client work after having quit the job, and I bet it all on Bitcoin, actually.
Okay.
Put it all in the crypto markets, and this is the fall of 2017, where Bitcoin was on a meteoric rise. I let it ride for 3 months, and then it significantly grew in those 3 months, let's say. And it was actually enough for me to make a down payment on this house. Okay. So having
Bitcoin.
It was Bitcoin, folks. So the short answer is I took a little bit of a chance there and got lucky. I'm not saying that I recommend that for everybody, but I was just kind of in this place in my life where I was able to do that. And ended up searching around. I always thought that I was going to end up in a town called Nozawa Onsen, which is I would say it's my first kind of hometown feel that we have in Japan. It's just on the other side of the valley here. We have just a lot of great friends over there. A lot of my mentors are there, people that have come out to Japan, 20, 30 years ago who forged a life in outdoor sports, in lodging. And so I naturally assumed I was going to go and end up over there. But the opportunity that Myoko presented was, Nozawa, the secret's out. It's one of the best resorts in the world. I definitely recommend everybody checks it out. It's a phenomenal town.
Go.
You gotta go. I'll take you over there, man.
Okay, nice.
But the town's a little bit, because of the international recognition, it's been closed off a little bit. And as a foreigner, buying property in that community is a little bit more difficult than it used to be.
Okay.
Here in Myoko, we're in the Wild West right now. So Myoko, in the late 1980s, throughout the 90s, was actually one of the top outdoors destinations, not just the skiing, but even in the summertime, one of the top destinations in all of Japan. And then when the economy crashed in the early 90s, there was just this huge retraction of interest from the Japanese youth, really, in outdoor sports and skiing and everything that we're doing out here. So we're in this kind of a new Renaissance era here in Myoko, in that people have kind of forgotten about these resorts. And I'm going to say it on the record, people, we get the most snow out of anywhere in Japan.
Okay.
We get more snow than Nozawa.
More than Hokkaido.
More than some of the Hokkaido resorts. So
Okay.
we average 17 meters of snow over here. That sounds crazy if you're not a skier or snowboarder, but if you're a skier or snowboarder, or potentially going to be a skier or snowboarder, that's manna from heaven. 17 meters of snow. So coming over to Myoko, we have the opportunity to build our own community, to try something new, to revitalize the area. And it was either I could go and be in a more comfortable situation with a system that I knew and was familiar with over in Nozawa, or kind of take a chance and pave a new path over here in Myoko. So I ended up coming over here to Myoko, and it's disputed on who bought their house first, but that guide from the Tokyo Snow Club, who's one of my best buddies, Sam, he ended up buying a house over here too. My younger brother is now out here, and we've kind of done a little bit of an exodus from Tokyo and pulled our group of friends out and showing everybody you don't have to live in a 10 meter box, 10 meter by 4 meter box.
$1,000 a month.
Yeah,
right?
$4,000 a month. Some silver lining from the coronavirus pandemic is I think people around the world are waking up to the fact that you don't have to be in the office to do
Precisely
90% of the work that you need to do, right? You can get a lot of this done. People can be trusted to work at home or work wherever home may be. And what we're finding now is, we want people, young people, I mean, old people too, we don't mind, we don't discriminate, but we want people to come out here and experience this amazing nature that we live in, that we love. And the opportunity for investment, the opportunity to live here, I mean, it's rife. It's a great option, and it's something that you're not gonna really find by Googling or by searching. Right, this is something that took a lot of experience in what we had been doing in outdoor sports, and with being a guide for Tokyo Snow Club, I had the opportunity to really every weekend visit every major ski resort in Japan.
Okay.
Guide customers there. So I got a really good look at where things were happening, where what places had potential, where some places, are maybe on the decline. And based off of my worldly research, I just came to the conclusion Myoko presents a unique opportunity, and I definitely...
Is it only for people who are interested in skiing and snow, or...
Absolutely not. Actually, almost I know one person out of all of the locals, so the people who are born here in Myoko, I know one girl who actually skis and snowboards.
Okay.
Everybody else that lives here, the winter is just this kind of cold period of time that you just got to get through until spring. right?
Okay.
So, and that has a little bit to do with that economic decline that I talked about earlier, with the interest in recreation in Japan declined precipitously throughout the 90s. It also has to do with the fact that when you grow up in a very snowy area, playing in the snow loses its appeal, let's say, right? But there's so much to do here. The winter, that is one aspect of it. Unfortunately, winters are getting shorter. You can't deny that global warming is having an effect on livelihoods, on the ski industry, the winter sports industry in general. That is happening, but this place is so much more than the skiing, right? There's onsens here. We have just wonderful.
The one that y'all never took me to in the mountains.
We're gonna take you up there. So we're gonna take you up to Tsubame Onsen. It's a gem. It's up on the right flank of Myoko-san, of our local stratovolcano that we love to play on.
Okay.
And it's just this, there's no showers, no anything. It's this hole in the ground that is filled with very invigorating and rejuvenating sulfuric water, and it's a great place to go, especially at night. There's no light pollution out there. You get beautiful star views, but that's just one aspect of it, right? So what we're doing out here is what's everybody trying to do is we're just trying to live freely, pursue our dreams, whether you like the outdoors or not. To be honest, the last couple months I've been sitting here working on the computer. All right, I could have been doing this in Tokyo. Or I could be doing it here where I have a little bit more space. I have time to go out, refresh my mind in between, the creative jobs that I'm doing. Have a walk in nature. I like to ride motorcycles too, so, go out for a little spin up on the mountain road. So it's just a different lifestyle that a lot of people, if you're interested in coming to Japan or moving to Japan, or if you're living here and you're maybe not stuck necessarily, but you're in your routine in Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka. You're in that city routine where most of the population in Japan lives. Nobody's really going to sit and tell you that it doesn't have to be this way. There's another option, and in a lot of ways, I would submit that it's a more rewarding option to come out here and kind of pave your own path.
So what would you say Myoko or Niigata offers that someone would not be able to get in Tokyo?
Oh, well, one, like I've been talking about the skiing and the outdoors, obviously. But I would say let's go kind of economically, okay? If you're living in one of the big cities in Japan, you're paying not exorbitant, but significant portion of your income is probably going to rent. If you're trying to live comfortably, live close to a station, and if that station's going to be close to your work, you're going to be you're throwing out some coin there, right?
Yeah.
What this place offers is, because the population decline that's continually affecting Japan, that matched with the hyper-urbanization, so the Shinkansen system that was put in 1964, right? Initiated in 1964. The Shinkansen system, it's a great system, but it's actually been devastating to the countryside of Japan.
Okay.
And the reason for that is it's really been almost like a suction cup, taking all of the young talent and youth from the Inaka, or the countryside, and then pulling them into the major cities, right?
I see.
And then even from a tourism standpoint, there's a town over on the other side of Niigata called Nozawa. That's where Kagura and Naiba ski resorts are. The Shinkansen, they were really excited to get a Shinkansen stop out there, and it devastated the town because that place went from being someplace where you go for the weekend to becoming a day trip spot from Tokyo. So all the lodges have had a significant decline in people who are staying there. Now, what that does mean, all of those aspects, that's difficult for a community to continue to thrive if, you're a farming community and you've been, growing rice for hundreds of years, like many of my neighbors have. And then, the internet comes along and then your youngest kids say, I don't want to be a farmer. I want to be an investment banker. So that's what's happening out here. And what that offers to somebody who looks at the flip side of that is there's some pretty incredible real estate opportunities, right? And I'm not advocating people. We're not looking for people with, like, big money, big investment companies to come in and displace people or do anything like that. But for people that are now realizing that you may not need to live in that major urban center, that you can work remotely, or you can maybe commute in a couple times a week, couple times a month, your options have now expanded. And from the Japanese standpoint, there's not
The interest isn't there.
it's not there from the younger generation, because they've been told the only way to make money is you have to be in Tokyo, and if you need to live under these conditions and you need to work this type of lifestyle. So part of what we're doing is not just outreach to the foreign community to show this area off, but we want Japanese people to take advantage of your own country. This is one of the most stunning places in the world, and you were not made to be sitting in an office.
None of us were.
None of us were. None of us were.
But let me backtrack a little bit real quickly.
Sure.
When did you move to Myoko?
So I moved to Myoko at the end of 2017.
Okay. So when you moved here, you came with the intention of opening a lodge. That was the main reason to come here?
The really impetus for buying this house in particular was I wanted to run a chalet. I wanted to host people, and the idea from that came because I come from like a tour guiding background, so taking up to 200 customers from Shinjuku Station every Friday, going to different ski resorts in Japan. And we do events every weekend of the year, right? So in the wintertime, we're obviously skiing. We do island trips in the summertime. We would be, going to festivals. It was a good time. But having that kind of experience, it's a little bit different than just being only a ski instructor. You're doing a little bit of adult babysitting. As I say, people want to just kind of kick back and relax on the weekend and forget about their woes during the week. Coming from the ski instructor perspective, when we have clients that come in from, especially the Asian market, I like to talk a little bit about the Asian market a little bit more in a bit as well. But when you have people that are coming in from China, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaysia, a lot of people sign up for ski instruction, but they're not really looking for ski lessons. They're not looking to do drills to, work on their parallel terms. They're looking for a guide. They want somebody to ski with them, give them some tips and tricks, have lunch with them, make restaurant recommendations, and spend like really hands-on time with them. Now, as a ski school, as a business, these are not necessarily your ideal customers, right? You want customers that are come in, take your lessons, get better at skiing, and refer, their friends and family to come in and do the same thing. I decided to target that market. So I want to take on the people that need a little bit more hand-holding, that you're not looking just for a lesson. You're not just looking to come out and just go out in the snow, but come out, experience the local culture. Let's go out. Let's eat together. We can cook here in the house. We can go out to the local izakayas. Obviously, we go skiing together. I've been instructing for coming up about 15 years now. Okay. So so I obviously can. If you want to run those drills, I can run those drills with you. But it's not really what it's all about. This is a different kind of lodge where we want to really create that whole package for everybody. Do a little bit of hand-holding, but, spend a little bit more time together, get to know me, get to know the area. And it's an interesting clientele that we've been catering to, and the response overall has been very positive in the last couple seasons.
So if someone books your lodge, right, they book it online, what can they expect when they come here?
Yeah, so if you book Myoko Powder Farm online, this isn't just some place to come and lay your head. Obviously, we have comfortable beds.
Very comfortable.
We want you to be comfortable here, but this is more of an experience. This is supposed to be the headquarters for your adventure, right? We want you to come out, and I want to show you this area. This is my favorite place in the world, and I'm lucky to live in my favorite place in the world. So I want to share that with you. This, unlike other ski or outdoor sports areas, this is not really a ski area, it's a region. So we have, within 15 minutes of the lodge, there are 12 different ski resorts. Each of them very unique, and each of them are going to change day by day based off of the weather conditions and the snow conditions. So when you're skiing, it really does help to have somebody that's local to the area to make recommendations or take you out and maybe show you some areas that you might not be able to see, but if you're just on your own. But during the green season, this is one of the, like I keep saying, it's such a beautiful area, but there's so much that you probably would overlook by just driving through, right? We have a beautiful lake, and that's just one of like the icing on top is for the summer sports. We have a beautiful lake just 5 minutes up the road. So I love to take people out wakeboarding. My brother lives here in town, and he's the operations manager for this company, Go Myoko, where they are building a whole new adventure center that's going to focus on mountain biking. So we're not trying to just provide accommodation. This should be an experience for you, and it should be one of the best experiences you've ever had in your life. If it's not, I didn't do my job right.
Okay, so I want to also backtrack a little bit more again, because
Sure.
I know people are going to ask this question, and then we come fast forward again. How did you secure the job in Tokyo initially?
So initially coming out here, so I originally came and I did another bachelor's degree actually at Temple University in Tokyo. So I originally came on a student visa.
Okay.
And a lot of, I was a little bit older. I'd already gone to college before, and I'd studied music, and looking at my options, music career-wise, I could either stay in the business side of things, which I was not very happy in with all that superficiality and all that. Or I could become like a timpani player for an orchestra. No interest in that. And so I came out and I did a communications degree at Temple University in Japan. And that's how I transitioned into video.
I see.
I was a little bit older then. So I was older than your average college student. So I was immediately looking at career opportunities from the first day. Like I was out here trying to secure that, next step. That was just kind of one sidestep in my career, right? So, I mean, it wasn't easy at first, especially not knowing the lay of the land, not understanding how employment in Japan works, and coming in a little bit too hot in terms of my own ego, thinking that everybody's just going to be so happy to have me and my Western perspective in these media organizations I was applying for. So the job search took about 8 months, actually, but I was in school during that time. And then I got this position actually doing like digital content management for this creative kind of, not agency, like a marketing firm, right? That was a good foray into it, and I was doing some video content there, but it also, the running theme is I'm constantly not feeling like I'm utilizing my creativity to the max. I felt very stifled there. And so at this time, VR was becoming a big buzzword. And I went to like a meet and greet for a virtual reality agency, and I put on virtual reality goggles, and I said, whoa, what the hell is this? I have to figure out how to do this. So I went online and I taught myself how to become a virtual reality producer in terms of making 360-degree videos. And I spent, it was an intensive 3 weeks that I just spent online doing this. I understood the basics of it. And I went back to that company. I said, I'm a VR producer. I'm a VR producer. Yeah, I've been doing it for a while. And, I want to help, take your content and make it more applicable to a more Western audience. If you guys are trying to be at the forefront of your industry, and I've worked at Apple before, and, I was, kind of talking it up a little bit. And yeah, they were like, yeah, let's do this. We really want to make a California startup style environment.
Okay.
And I was like, perfect. Well, I'm from California and I love a startup environment. That statement couldn't be further from the truth. What they really wanted to do was create like a mini Dentsu, which is the biggest advertising agency in Japan. And it was very strict, and everything that I said, you want to make the startup environment, maybe you should do this or implement this policy, or maybe don't judge your creative team based off of the same metrics that you judge your sales team, which seems like common sense, right? And it was just constantly butting heads with these people. But in terms of getting that first job, the first thing that I would recommend to anybody that's interested in working out here is, one, you have to speak Japanese if you want to work in the Japanese market. There's no way around it. There's people online that'll tell you, yeah, you can come out here, but if you want to get out of the teaching English or recruiting fields, which you can definitely do without speaking that much Japanese, and there's nothing wrong with those career fields. But if you're looking to get out of those two kind of English-centric industries, you have to speak Japanese. Even if your Japanese is not perfect. Now, obviously, mine's not. I'm conversational. I can talk about anything, but I'm not fluent.
Okay.
All right? But when Japanese people, especially in a business setting, when they see that you're making the effort, they see that you're not coming in and saying, hey, how you doing? We're going to do this today. If you come in, you do a little bow, you give it the ohayou gozaimasu, o genki desu ka, and you're trying, right? If you're just making that effort, that enough is an icebreaker that's going to get you past where somebody that comes in with a very headstrong and very English-centric attitude comes in. Working in a more technical field, you need to know the vocabulary for that field. So I would highly recommend somebody that's job searching, one, and I might make some waves here, do not study for the JLPT. That's the Japanese language proficiency exam, the Nihongo no Ryoku Shiken. Okay? Do not study for that. Okay? That is a waste of time. That is, if you want to be a linguistics major and you want to study the ins and outs of the Japanese language, okay, go do that. But what you need to do if you want to prepare yourself to work in Japan is you need to learn industry-specific vocabulary and how to communicate with other people on your team, in your organization, and in your industry. The best way to do that is there are trade magazines for anything you can imagine in Japan, in Japanese. You can go online, find those trade magazines. You don't have to speak any Japanese to do this, okay? Find those trade magazines and take that content. Initially, put it in Google Translate so you at least know what you're talking about. And then you can, as you kind of advance, you can download kanji readers. If you're on Google Chrome, there's a great one called Rikaikun.
Okay.
You go through these trade magazines, or if you have the ability to send emails and converse back and forth with people that work in the industry, even using Google Translate those that type of content, learn that vocabulary, and then you become situationally fluent in whatever situation that is. Now, do you need to be able to give a speech on the Japanese economy in front of the Diet? No, right? That's what the JLPT prepares you for. You need to be able to communicate, and that's the main thing. So I would say don't focus on trying to absorb an entire language. Focus on something that's very specific that's going to help you in your career. And if you break it down into that, it's not that overwhelming. Anybody can do this, right? It's no special abilities, no linguistic gifts or anything. It's just, you got to be a little bit clever. Don't necessarily believe everything you read online, and be targeted with your time. Spend your time wisely.
Okay. So what has your Black experience been like so far? So from being a student, residing in Tokyo, to moving to Myoko, and even, I guess this is a multifaceted question, but let's just do that part first.
Sure.
What has your Black experience been like, being a student in Japan, in Tokyo, and now living out here in Myoko?
My experience as a Black man in Japan has been overwhelmingly positive. All right. My dad had a great quote that he that he espoused, and nobody really believed him, but I took it to heart. And my dad was born in 1945, went to Vietnam, had obviously lived through the civil rights movement, and then being a Black veteran coming back, dealt with a lot of racial issues. But my dad said, right up until the end, so he passed in 2009, but he said, racism has never affected me because I didn't let it. And I have a lot of friends that said, no way, he went through, he lived in the 1950s and 60s in America. And what he meant by that was, be good at what you do, right? When we live in this kind of globalized economy right now, and you can learn anything you want online, they can call you names, they might not want to serve you or sit next to you on the train or whatever, but they can't hold you down anymore, right? You can learn anything you want on the internet. You can start any kind of business you want to on the internet, and people cannot stop you. So my Black experience in Japan, it's been overwhelmingly positive. One, because I did spend the time to learn the language before getting here. So people, that's a little bit of an icebreaker, right? That not everybody's gonna have. Japanese people are, and I hate to generalize because they're obviously a diverse group of people themselves, but in general, people are curious. They want to talk to you. They want to learn about your culture. They're going to ask you insensitive questions, but I don't take that as being racist. All right, I take this as it's people's first experience dealing with a Black person, having a Black friend. That's not just in Japan, but I have a lot of friends from Australia, right? I have a lot of friends from Australia where I'm their first Black friend, right? If you come out looking for racism and microaggressions, you will find them. It's plain and simple. But my experience has been such that, I'll let the microaggressions slide. I know that people out here inherently are not bad, evil, trying to oppress me or trying to make me feel uncomfortable, even though some of their actions may. So overall, yeah, it's been a very positive experience being Black in Japan, and I go so far as to say as it's been a better experience than being Black in America.
Is there one experience that stands out into your mind in Japan being Black that you think is connected to your race?
That's a good question. Maybe not one experience in particular, but because not only am I a Black person in Japan, I'm also a Black ski instructor in Japan, in a sport that Black people are not traditionally known for participating in. And so it's just been the overall experience of being in this industry and explaining, yes, Black people ski. Matter of fact, if you go to a National Brotherhood of Skiers trip, we could probably ski. We got a lot of people that probably can ski better than you can. But other than really just explaining, yes, I'm Black. Yes, I can speak Japanese. No, it wasn't that difficult to learn Japanese. Yes, I can ski. Yes, I can do these things that you don't think that Black people could or should be doing. I like wakeboarding. You know what I mean? I like swimming. Yeah, we like to do that. And just explaining that to people who might ask in an insensitive manner at first, that's been something that you deal with. But what is that? Does that affect me? No. It's a learning experience for them, and you just come out and just be open-minded. And yeah, it's a overall. I let it roll off my back. I've not had any real overt racist encounters in Japan where I couldn't do something or I wasn't served or I was, particularly singled out and excluded from something because I was Black. That happens because you're a foreigner, yeah. But, I mean, what it comes down to is you're either Japanese or you're not. And what's interesting is, especially some of my white friends and some of my white American friends who've gone from a majority white culture to come out here and now be a minority, they're dealing with these things I grew up with. Like, it's like, yes, you're a minority. Deal with it. This is how it is. No matter what you do, no matter how good your Japanese is, you are not Japanese. If you can accept that, now I found my Black friends out here, that's not an issue for us. So it's like, yeah, all right, I'm Black in America, I'm Black in Japan, it's the same thing, right? But I actually wrote a paper about this in college. I found some of my white friends have had a very difficult time adjusting to being a minority. Well, I want to go and I want to do this. You can't do that, right? You're not part of the club. Welcome to this club.
How different is your Black experience in Japan versus back in America?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and it kind of alludes back to kind of what I was talking about before. Here in Japan, you're either a foreigner or you're not, right? There are some racist Japanese people, just like there are racist people all over the world. But out here, I feel like that race, I think xenophobia would be a better term to describe it out here. That extends to everybody, whether you're Black American, whether you are a white Frenchman, or, Asian Australian, or whatever that is. I feel like that is more mitigated. My overall experience in the United States, I never had too bad of an encounter with the police. But my experience in the United States was also not representative of a lot of the Black community. Right, I grew up in Orange County, California. My father was a judge, and I had a relationship with the law enforcement community, even though they still, they annoyed the living hell out of me as a teenager. But I didn't face. My parents worked really hard to give us the opportunity to exist outside of a lot of the social issues that plague the United States of America. So I have to recognize that and say that my experience growing up was not the same as what you're seeing happen with the outpouring of grief, anger, and anguish that is happening in the United States. And I have to be sympathetic to that because that's my family as well. That's my family. Those are my friends. This past year, it's been a little difficult watching everything that's happened in the United States in particular, but worldwide, and feeling isolated out here in Japan. I want to be part of that. I've been politically active since I was 12 years old, right? I want to be part of that. I also want to show to my friends, family, the Black community in the United States that they're going to continue to tell you the United States is the best country in the world. This is as good as it gets. You're stuck. I mean, what? Where are you going to go? Everybody else is idiots and out there. That's just not the case. It's just not the case. I've been out here. I've been treated with respect. I've had the opportunity to purchase property, and I am the only, not just Black person, I'm the only foreigner in this neighborhood. Right? I'm the first English speaker that my neighbors have ever dealt with. Right? I was able to purchase this property. I've received support from my local community. It's been a completely different experience than I think if I was trying to purchase property in some parts of the United States right now. I definitely know that it would not be as smoothly as what's happened out here. So my Black experience in Japan, I mean, it's not perfect. This is not paradise. It's not the utopia, right? It's easy to look at everything with rose-tinted glasses, but it's also not bad. And I want people to experience that. And shit, I want some Black neighbors, man. You know what I'm saying? I try to get you out of here. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so overall, it's been very positive. Growing up in the United States, it was not as negative as it could have been. But there are systemic problems that have to be addressed in the United States. And I will admit to losing a little bit of faith that the United States as a society has the ability to address those problems. And that goes beyond race relations. That's a whole litany of economic issues and social issues that accompany that. And when I look at a society that aligns with my values as a human being, and I evaluate, I've done quite a bit of travel. This is the place that most aligns with me as a human being. It's not for everybody. I'm not saying it is. But I encourage people, it doesn't have to be Japan. I think especially I'm encouraging Black people. Look outside of your immediate surroundings and find that place, some place that speaks to you, that identifies with you, your values, your interests, and pursue that. I mean, we're here. We made it happen. We're here. You can do that, all right? And I'm not saying cut and run, all right? But I'm just saying look at your life, evaluate the time that you have, and find that society, that place where you belong. And that's the best advice I think I could give to somebody.
So from some of the comments I've read, right,
Right.
and some of the conversations I've had, some people would try to challenge your father's position.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right? And so how can someone practically walk out that in terms of making racism not affect them? Like, how can you practically walk out that in America, for instance, or elsewhere?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I necessarily have the answer for that. I'm just going based off what the old man said.
Okay.
But the way that I see it is information has been democratized. Okay? So black people have never been any less intelligent than anybody else. Have never been fundamentally different or other than anybody else in the world. Yeah. Nobody is, right? The difference is, and especially in the case of the United States, is crucial information about the nature of the society, access to power, and access to information, really, has been withheld from the black community. And that, I mean, that's a fact, okay? With the internet, that information dissemination has been democratized. So I can't say that if somebody calls you a racial slur, that's not going to affect you. That's not going to ruin your day, that you're not going to take that personally. What I'm saying is from an economic standpoint, regardless of where you are, get online, find your passion, and learn how to be the absolute best that you can be at that passion. If you do that, you're removing the barrier to entry that many industries have excluded black people from, right? That barrier to entry into a certain job market. The internet has democratized not just the information, but it's democratized the job market. This is a meritocracy. So if you're doing something, you have the ability. MIT puts their courses online for free now, right? You can learn anything in the world on YouTube. And I'll go so far as to say, out of everything I've learned in my college education, and in particular the communications degree that I did here in Japan, that communications degree has not paid for itself at all, other than exposing me to, okay, this medium of video might be something good. But every practical skill that I've ever learned, from video production to now I do audio and podcasting production, everything I learned for free on the internet. I taught myself, and that is how I make my living. It's what supported this house, this property purchase. And even though, so I had a privileged upbringing that exposed me to the outside world. So it exposed me to travel to different cultures, exposed me to, gave me that core belief in education. And that's obviously very important. But when it came down to actually supporting myself, I didn't come over here with a massive bankroll. I didn't come over here with, just throwing money all over. I had to be extremely frugal. I started from zero. I was pretty much illiterate when I came to this society, right?
In terms of the language.
In terms of the language, right? So, yeah, I could say hello, how are you? And, but I really didn't, I didn't have some nest egg to just start everything with. I had to learn skills, learn on the fly. I learned on the internet, and I was able to, I'm not saying I made it, but I've gotten this far. I'm still growing, still moving forward, but anybody can do this. There's nothing special about me that it would exclude anybody around the world from doing something similar, and it doesn't have to be in Japan. You can do this anywhere around the world. Learn, find a passion, be the best at that. People will find you, and a lot of times they'll pay you for that.
So I guess there's something else I want to talk about, but you said you also do a podcast, right? So you also have a podcast, right? So you can tell the people what the podcast is about. And the motivation for starting it.
Yeah, so I host a podcast. It's called Japan on the Record. And what I really wanted to do is, it's very similar. It's in the same vein of what you're doing with Black Experience Japan. It's because of the nature of working in outdoor sports and just being out here by the nature of being Black out here. I have the opportunity to meet some really, really unique characters, and everybody's got some sort of story. Now, it's easy within our group of friends to kind of whitewash that or forget about that just because we're all here. This is all normal for us. We all ski 60, 70 days a year. We go wakeboard. We do all this. And, a lot of my friends are lodge owners or business owners, investors, or people that are doing something that's a little bit off the beaten path of what you would expect maybe expats in Japan to be doing. Not just expats, but the Japanese population that lives here as well. We have a lot of people that have kind of bucked the trend that said, no, I am not a salaryman. I am not a robot. I'm a human being and I want to live in nature. So I've been saying for years, like, man, so many people have so many great stories. I need to put this on the record. I need to get this person's life story. I want maybe this person has something to say to somebody else that might be in a similar circumstance and give them a little bit of inspiration. So you and I just recorded a great podcast. It's going to be definitely one of the best ones that we've done to date. So what we want to do with the podcast is just show people these are our stories. These are our lives here. This is Japan, but these are people that are kind of carving their own paths, and you can do the same, regardless of where you are, right? And that's the notion of that particular podcast. I run another podcast called the Audio Growth Podcast, and that's through my company Pod Mixers, where I do full service podcast production. I have a team of kind of a little bit of global team. We do full service podcast production for independent creators and for B2B brands and pretty much anybody that wants to get into audio storytelling. So I run the Audio Growth Podcast, and that's just about how podcasting and audio storytelling can really revolutionize your growth as a brand. So that's more B2B focused. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out that. But we just recorded Japan on the Record, and I'm really happy with the interview. So looking forward to putting that out, my man.
When you were securing the property, what was the process like? Right, being a foreigner. Tell me about, were there any like red tapes, anything you had to jump over to get it done? Like, what was that process like?
That's a really good
question.
question.
How can someone else do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, purchasing property in Japan as a foreigner is surprisingly easy. Okay. So if you've been living out here for any amount of time and you've had to go to the ward office and you've had to do immigration or any of these lovely things that we get to deal with, you would assume, rightly so, that doing a property purchase or getting up and running a business like this would be difficult. The easiest part of all that was actually the property purchase. Okay? So the most important, if you're interested in purchasing a property, especially if you are looking outside of those urban centers, which I highly recommend, you need to go out and get to know the lay of that land. This is not something that's going to be easily done online like you would be able to do almost anywhere else in the world. You need to go out, get a feel for that community, walk the streets, get the lay of the land, and insert yourself into that community a little bit. Let them kind of get used to seeing you around, and you'll see if you're open and kind and willing to deal with the inevitable microaggression that comes with that. Opportunities are going to open up. So the process for doing that is actually finding this house. I lucked out. Having done what I just described, coming up here, getting to know the community, I actually found a lot of properties that were not listed anywhere. People that were tired of shoveling snow and wanted to, go live with their kids who were living in not such a snowy area or moved down to Tokyo. I found a lot of properties that people were just ready to sell, pretty much right there. This one I actually found online. So this one kind of went against that trend. I found online, I went through a real estate agent and came in, and pretty much as soon as I walked in the door, I said, yeah, this is it. I'll take it. What? Are you sure? I was like, yeah, I'll take it. Now, it didn't look anything like this. We did a massive remodel project over the course of the last 2 years. But I kind of lucked out on this property. So step one, if you're looking to purchase property in Japan, physically go there to wherever you're thinking about buying, go and inspect the house, and just as important, walk the streets, get to know the community, try and get to know people there. Step two, once you decide that you want to purchase that property, you can either go directly to the seller, which is a little bit more difficult, especially if they don't know you, or you can contact the local real estate agent. And even, now here's a little secret, even if the property's not for sale, you find a nice house, you can go to a real estate agent and say, hey, I'm really interested in this property. The real estate agent can then go and make that first contact with the homeowner and say, hey, I have a potential buyer for your property. Are you maybe looking to move? If so, what's the cost? All right, so step two, you can then go to a real estate agent. Or you can go to what's called the shihoshishi. Mm-hmm. Shihoshishi is a judicial scrivener, and they're going to be integral to the real estate purchase process anyways. They're the ones that are going to make the contract and essentially finalize, they're the governmental entity that's going to finalize that purchase. You can go straight to them and with your seller and say, we want to do a transfer of title. Can we do this with you? And you can actually cut out your real estate agent fee, which will be up to 13% of the property price, depending on what prefecture you're in and what you're doing. Once you do that, it's really about just paying the seller, and you have your house.
So what, with initial contact, right? Was there any response to you being a foreigner? Or like, were they asking, okay, do you have this, or do you need this as a foreigner?
No, so actually you can purchase property in Japan even on a tourist visa. You don't need to be a resident in Japan to purchase property here, okay? The thing is, everything else that you need to do to maintain your property, it definitely helps if you have your Zaidyu card, your residence card, if you are a officially registered resident in Japan. If you are going to be running what I do, I run what's called a minpaku business, so I'm running a lodging business, then it's possible but difficult to do that without your residency here in Japan. If you do have your Zaidyu card and you are a registered resident, then yes, it is a process. That's when it gets more complicated. They'll let you purchase the property, but they want blood if they want to make it easy for you to profit off of it, right? If you have purchased your property and then you're trying to run it as a business like we're doing here, that's where it gets more complicated. They want their pound of flesh to get that running. But in terms of purchasing property, yes, you can definitely purchase property without your residency here in Japan. And,
is it cash or?
Well, it depends on your circumstances. You can get a loan here, and the loans actually are, at a lot of times, like a 0.25% interest, 1.1% interest on the high end. But getting qualified for those loans is very difficult. Really, you'd probably need a Japanese spouse to do that. There's certain banks. I know Shinsei Bank does finance homes for foreigners. But yeah, they're pretty strict on doing that loan. So the best way to do it, because the property prices out here in the Inaka are so depressed, save 5 years. You'd be surprised at the housing prices out here. You can get a pretty decent, ready to live in property for under $50,000 US. I mean, that's with the land included. So it's the opportunity is there if you want to do a cash purchase. It's the easiest way. But there's also financing options out here in Japan as well.
Okay. You said they wanted their pound of flesh.
Yes.
What was the most challenging part of that process after securing the property? Like, what was the most challenging part?
Yeah. So the licensing process here in Japan. This is a licensing process that was developed by the hotel lobby through the national government. The only purpose for that is it is to make it more difficult for you as an independent lodge owner to compete with the big hotel chains. There's no benefit to the customer, and there's no benefit to the lodge owner for doing this licensing process. So go in knowing that. You go in knowing that I'm about to go through this scavenger hunt gauntlet of bureaucracy. And it's really, all they're trying to do is to get you to quit.
To dissuade you, eh?
Yeah, to dissuade you. But just stick to it, and it's supposedly getting better, and the process is under review as of this year. We'll see what happens with the...
But for your personal residence... Oh, wait.
No, go ahead.
But for a personal residence, it's fine. You can buy a house, you can live in it, it's fine. It's easy.
Personal residence, totally fine. Where it gets more complicated is if you're trying to run a lodge and Airbnb, if you're trying to, host people in that house, then the licensing process is tedious. But not impossible, obviously. Not impossible.
What's your dating life like in Japan?
Well, yes, I happily have a girlfriend right now. You know, things going pretty well on that front. And she is Japanese. She actually lives down in Saitama, so which is actually very convenient coming from here and going down there. But dating life in Japan, if I go back to my late 20s, it's pretty fun, people. So, I mean, this kind of goes into being, black in Japan. You're going to run into people that are instantly not interested in you. They don't want to know anything about you. They don't want anything to do with you. That's fine. Forget them, right? Forget about that. There are plenty of men and women out here, okay? It's a little bit more difficult for the women. We can go into that. But there are plenty of men and women out here that are very interested in learning about somebody who's not from here. It's learning about a different culture, right? Black culture worldwide, not just from the United States, has really been embraced by some aspects of Japanese society. There's a whole BK movement, which I don't know what the K stands for, maybe it's black, but the BK movement, like B-boys and B-girls, that were, if you look at it, it looks kind of damn offensive, but, they were dressing like, the going to tanning salons with the cornrows and really just obsessively listening to hip hop, not just the foreign hip hop, but the native Japanese hip hop. There's been interest in black culture from a segment of the Japanese population for decades now, and I can talk a little bit about that because that actually stems back to the Reconstruction era after World War II, and this applies mostly to black men dating Japanese women. But I have very good friends who are black women married to Japanese men. So this goes both ways. But what people sometimes overlook is that in 1945, the country is obviously destroyed, 2 nuclear attacks, and that doesn't even account for the devastation that happened in Tokyo during the firebombing of Tokyo in 1944 and 1945. So during the occupation of Japan, you had the American forces come in, and I'm not going to pull any punches. White people came in and did what white people do, or did at that time, and pretty much started treating the native Japanese population the same way they were treating the black population in the United States under the Jim Crow policies. Very brutal, maybe even more so with rapes, with all sorts of abuses that were happening. And this, I don't want to completely say it's 100%, but overall, this was typically perpetrated by the white GIs that were occupying. Now, the black GIs that were in Japan during that time saw, so I'm going to have to go back to the United States and live under this Jim Crow policy. I'm going to go back and be facing this same persecution that I'm seeing happen to the Japanese population. And so they fostered they fostered better relationships with the native Japanese population. So at that time, during this terrible time to be alive if you're in Japan, the Japanese population would often seek out the black GIs, actually, if something was going on, if there was some issue, because they were kind of rightly so scared of some of the actions that some of the white GIs had partaken. And again, I don't want to paint a broad stroke. I'm talking about a couple of bad actors, not more than a couple, but obviously they're great white American soldiers that really served with honor during the occupation. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that the perception, and this is what I've heard from the Japanese, I have older Japanese drinking buddies. This is what they're saying. I'm not making this up. This isn't what I read online. This is first-hand account, so don't shoot the messenger. Right? But because of that, there's a segment of the population that has been very open and had a soft spot in their hearts for black people living in Japan. And I've met those people down near the Navy base in Yokosuka, down in Kanagawa. We talked about that a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that is an attitude that does permeate some aspects of society. It's obviously not everybody, but that can happen. As that kind of comes into dating into today, yes, there are going to be people that do not want a black boyfriend or black girlfriend that have a negative perspective that they've seen based off of stereotypes that are perpetrated in the media. That is unavoidable, right? It's unavoidable, right? But don't let that affect you, because there are plenty of beautiful people here that are open to any culture, that are open to learning and really interesting. Now, in their relationship, like, they might ask some insensitive questions, but that's not coming from a place of trying to persecute you or it's from they've not dealt with racial issues in this fashion. So overall, yeah, I've had a positive experience dating here in Japan. I've had a great time at the end of my 20s when I was out here. I have a great relationship now, and it's a process. I will say, I don't want to discourage anyone, but I have lost so many beautiful, talented, glorious Western women as friends out here in Japan, because it is a little bit difficult for dating. It's in my experience, it's been more difficult for Western women than it has been for foreigner men in Japan. A large part of that comes from the Japanese men are intimidated a bit and not necessarily willing to put themselves out there to engage with a Western woman. They're nervous about their language abilities. They'll admire from afar, but it's very difficult for them to go up and nampa, as we would say, go up and flirt or talk. I haven't found the answer to that one yet. So I want, I like I said, I've lost some just incredibly talented, incredibly beautiful friends. I don't know. I would imagine that the dating has been part of that, and that's something that's unfortunate. But it's not utopia, but overall, it's good. And I'm not saying as a Western woman you can't find love. I'm just saying you're not gonna be going into the like the meat farm that some bars in the United States could be, and people coming up and accosting you. That's in general not gonna happen out here. I would advise foster like a deeper connection with people, especially if you're interested in dating Japanese men. Get to know them. Japanese men actually travel outside of Japan far less than Japanese women do. Japanese women travel abroad for fun. Japanese men typically travel abroad for business, right? So you just got to be more proactive and foster that relationship. It's going to take more time, but yeah, dating Japan, it's a good time, and everything's all good on that front.
With learning Japanese, right? What's one advice that you can share with people who are currently in the process?
That's a good question. remember one thing, that Japanese is not, it's written everywhere. Japanese is this difficult language. It's a difficult language. It is not a difficult language. Studying Japanese is a tedious process. And that's a distinction that really needs to be made. There's no way around it. It's tedious. You're going to have to sit down and dedicate your time and effort to that. So if you're somebody that ended up being transferred over here for work, you're not really interested in the culture, you're here and kind of getting through it, you're not going to be able to just go to Japanese classes, sit down and get the language. You really need to be motivated to do that. So if you're interested in learning Japanese, make studying Japanese, make that a hobby of yours. It was a hobby for me. I enjoyed it. I enjoy writing out the kanji. I've never been good at art. I've never been good at drawing or anything, but there's a sense of satisfaction. If you can get like a 17-stroke kanji down and you nailed it, I feel good about that, right? Make it fun for yourself. I would also go back, don't try and learn the entire language, okay? There's a Japan vlogger named Hiko Simon who I was following when I was living in the United States, and he has a great video. Maybe we should link it in the description, but he has a great video called What is Fluency? And he's from New Zealand, and he essentially talks in fluent Japanese. You close your eyes, you would not know it wasn't a Japanese person, but he describes what is fluency. Being fluent is not mastering an entire language. I don't know every in and out of the English language, right? So make yourself, what he talks about is be situationally fluent. So I talked about it earlier with your job, with your profession. Learn the vocabulary that's relevant to you in your life, right? Don't try and do like a linguistic study, unless you're a linguist, but don't do a linguistic study of the language. Get targeted. Now, you do, in the very beginning stages, you do need to get one of the textbooks. To be honest, they're not that great, but you just got to get through it. Like the Genki 1 textbooks, there's a couple of different ones. Go through that textbook, maybe the first 2 series of those textbooks, just to get the basics of the language. And then once you get there, I would branch out from the text and then go and just use real life situations to learn the language, right? So go on those trade magazines if you're learning for business. Go on to forums if you have hobbies. I mean, how much stuff is there written about anime, right? Go to karaoke. Learn karaoke songs. Okay, it is a great tool. You'll learn to read. You'll learn the pronunciation. Karaoke is a great tool to learn Japanese. And I would just encourage you to, when you get to Japan, you have to be social, open. Do not be coming out here looking for a reason to be upset by microaggressions and looking for racism. Because if you want to see it, you can see it. The other option is you can come out here, be completely open, be approachable, make Japanese friends. If you drink, go to your local standing bar. Don't go to the hub. Don't go to the clubs in Shibuya. Go to your local. At every station, there is a local standing bar with the local people. Come home after work and go there for a drink on their way home. Be a regular down there. You'll get to know the gossip of the town. It's just immerse yourself in it. And I would say if you're just starting off, the one thing that I would have done differently, if you're at 0 right now and you're interested in learning Japanese, one, there's no way to get around it. You're going to have to learn 3 writing systems. You have to learn the hiragana, the katakana, and the kanji. Some people say you need the kanji, right? Just prepare yourself for that. What I would do for the phonetic writing systems in Japanese is learn them both at the same time. There's 46 characters in each system. The way it's taught is you learn 46 hiragana, and you're like, sweet, I got this. I can speak Japanese. Now I've learned all of the sounds in the language. I can do this. And then boom, day 3 of the class, like, oh, no. You're going to have to learn these 46 katakana. And it's exactly the same term. So what I would do is learn them both at the same time. This is the sound ah. You can write ah like this and like this. This is eh. You can write eh like this and like that. Do that. Save yourself a couple weeks and just, find yourself some Japanese media to immerse yourself. make some friends, and enjoy the process. If you're not enjoying the process, don't do it.
So, did you have to change your visa from working for an agency to becoming a lodge owner?
Yes. So I originally came here on a student visa. Graduated school, transitioned to a working visa. So that was the Specialist in Humanities visa. That's probably the most common visa that most people are on. And that's a visa that is sponsored by your company, but the visa is not actually tied to that company. Okay. So the company actually submits tax documents to immigration, and they show that yes, we're a real company, yes, we pay this amount in taxes, and yes, we need this employee. Going from that visa, how do you go freelance? How do you decide I'm not going to work for the man anymore? There's a couple of different ways to do it. What I decided to do is I'm on a business manager visa, and this is what I would recommend doing because you don't necessarily need a company to be on a business manager visa. And I don't know how deep I should go into this, but you can, there's different types of business entities in Japan. The most common with the most large companies is called a Kabushiki Gaisha. It's a KK. Those are the companies that you see everywhere. And you don't necessarily, it doesn't have to be a big company, medium size, right? There's another classification called a Godo Gaisha, a GK. Now, those two entities can sponsor the Specialist in Humanities visa. You have to have certain tax income requirements and revenue requirements to do that. What I'm on is actually the business manager visa, and even though I do have a company here in Japan, I was able to transition to this visa before having registered that company, and I was on what's called a Kojin Jigyo Nushi, which is a sole proprietorship. So this is pretty much, I am a freelance videographer. I'm employing myself. I have different clients, so I'm not getting, one steady paycheck from one client. You got multiple people, and this can work for if you're teaching English or whatever it is. What you can do is register this Kojin Jigyo Nushi, which is a tax classification. You register that at your local tax office. That has to be in the municipality in which you live. And then you're going to start filing your taxes independently. This is a massive bonus. I recommend everybody do this. Anyways, because that also lets you do tax deductions, right? So you can greatly reduce your tax burden, your personal tax burden.
Yeah, it's quite high in Japan.
It's serious. The taxes here they're serious, right? And they're coming at you for the city tax and your health insurance and income tax and all that. But you can vastly reduce that by going as a sole proprietor, and then you keep every receipt. Keep every receipt for anything that you ever buy. Anything you buy, you are trying to help yourself out and you're helping your business. Keep every receipt and deduct that from your income. As a sole proprietor, you have the ability to apply as a business manager visa. There's a couple of misconceptions about the business manager visas. It's written online that you have to show 5 million yen in cash and you have to have one employee under you to get a business manager visa. That is actually not the case. What you need to show to get the management visa is you have to have invested 5 million yen into your business, right? So in this case, that I was able to show that investment through the renovation project that I did and the property purchase with the house. In addition to that, I've invested in cameras and all this other stuff, and that's part of my business. It's everything under one. So I was able to show that investment without having registered the Godo Gaisha and without having an employee under me, and I was able to get that business manager visa. Once you get the business manager visa, getting it initially is the hardest part, but you can renew it. Really, all you have to do is just show your revenue, your profit and loss statement for the year, and you can renew pretty easily.
So you did the process yourself. You did it yourself. You never had a lawyer or
Right. Yeah. I'm not trying to step on anybody's shoes here, but in general, you do not need an immigration lawyer. I've found a lot of the services that are offered by different entities here in Japan are taking advantage of people's inability to read the language, and you can get all of the resources necessary to do anything with your visa directly from immigration. Now, if you want to go through that, like I said, they're taking their pound of flesh, okay? It's going to be painful. You're going to have to, you need some level of Japanese proficiency because not all of this is written in English. Not a lot of it is written in English, actually, right? And that's where an immigration lawyer can help. So if you want to just offshoot that and let somebody else handle that for you, it is a headache, and that's a valuable service that they're offering. But any service that makes it seem as though you wouldn't be able to get the visa without, they have some special line into immigration, that's just a pure falsehood. And yes, if you have intermediate level of Japanese ability, you can sponsor your own visa. Research, find the resources online. Definitely there are good immigration attorneys that can help you out, but you absolutely have the ability to do it by yourself. You just need a little bit of the Japanese language ability.
Okay. Where can people find you online?
Well, you can reach out to me personally. Probably the best way would be on Instagram. My Instagram is Real Donald Gray. Yeah. So you can find me at Real Donald Gray on Instagram. You can actually follow the lodge at Myoko Powder Farm. If you're interested in checking out the lodge, you can go to www.myokopowderfarm.com. That's www.myokopowderfarm.com, and we're available there. Like I had said before, do podcast production and help people out with audio storytelling. You can find us at Podmixers. That's podmixers.com, podmixers.com. And if you're interested in podcasting at all, really just shoot us a line. We're happy to help. We have a lot of free resources, and we have a lot of podcasts actually that are aimed at helping people take advantage of that medium. So please drop us a line, and definitely looking forward to connecting with all of you.
All right. So guys, there you have it. This was Donald. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and remember to subscribe to this channel for weekly videos on the Black experience across Japan, in the world. And again, thanks for watching. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you.